I'm Jackie.
And I'm Ashley. Welcome to Dumb Witch Club.
Ooh, I almost went into our witching hour intro.
Yeah.
Because we've been doing that so much more often. I was just like, no, don't say anything.
You were like, wait, no, not that. Wait, no.
Like, you don't have to say anything. Don't say anything.
I know. It's hard to know, like, what we do. It, gets confusing.
And then I'm also like, what is the actual difference? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. One of them we drink wine.
I think that's the main difference.
Yeah, and we're sillier.
It's a little shorter, and we're drinking wine.
And we're sillier.
Well, I don't know if that's
Well, that's
related
true. No, you're absolutely, you're absolutely right.
To the wine or not?
Because it could, because episode to episode it could vary. It does vary.
It really does vary. I know.
That's what's fun about Dumb Witch Club.
You never know what you're going to get.
I don't know.
Grab bag. Okay, so what are y'all getting today? Wonder?
Yes, they wonder. They're they're seeing our vibe here. I feel like they're like, oh, that's okay.
Macabre.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I
love it.
I love it too. No, I'm really excited actually about this episode.
Me too.
So we have landed on calling Haunted Places Witchlist.
Yeah, get it? They get it.
Totally.
I believe in them.
They get it.
They're smart. They're clever.
Super smart. If they're dumb witches, they're definitely smart.
Exactly.
So. We are doing like 3 locations.
Yeah, we're sticking to 3 for this one because this is definitely not like an exhaustive witch list.
Well, no, and of course, I mean, there's always more things on the witch list.
Yes.
So these are 3 things. 3. And I think they're pretty good ones.
Yeah, they're pretty good ones. They're like, I wouldn't go as far to say as they're like top 3.
Well, I agree because I don't think I haven't like ranked them.
No.
Or compared them to other places and ranked them.
Yes.
It's more just like these are 3 places that came to mind fast.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yes, other than the places that we've already been, which, we've discussed ad nauseum.
Correct. So these are 3 brand new places. Places we actually have not been.
Right.
But want to go and potentially could go.
Yes. Yeah. I believe that we will do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and these vary widely. So I also really like that. There's a lot of different vibes and different situations happening with these places. So
I know.
What is our first place?
So I feel like we're starting with the most accessible one for us.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Which is the Cecil Hotel.
Which is in Los Angeles.
Yes.
And so this is a place that has a very long, very sordid history.
Ooh, sordid.
It does.
It does.
And I think maybe is known or has been made more famous by a couple of more recent things.
Yes.
One of which being American Horror Story Season 5, Hotel, was inspired by this hotel.
Yes.
So if you didn't know that, but you have seen that season of American Horror Story, you will immediately be like, that was based on a real place.
I know. It's
like how awful.
So exactly.
Yes. Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Obviously, the show takes liberties, et cetera, blows it all up. That's great. It's entertainment. But it was based on this location.
Yeah. And I mean, for sure, it's Hollywood. Hollywood is Hollywood, right? But the actual stories and the lore and everything behind this place is crazy enough that there doesn't even really require that much embellishment. It's pretty terrifying.
No, and I think all of the places on our list have like real historical ties and reasons as to why they're believed to be haunted or whatever. This one is probably the worst.
Yes.
In terms of how long things happened, and there's some unexplained or paranormal type activity, but primarily these are real things that really happened there.
Yeah, that's the creepy, icky part about this one, because obviously it's West Coast, so it's not going to be as storied or as old or, not as much history in terms of years. That's just, the case. It was built in the 1920s.
Yeah, it was built in 1924.
Right.
Which means 2024, it's 100 years old.
It's 100 years old. Which for us is like, oh, that's pretty old. But obviously for a lot of people that's, relatively young. But just the energy and everything, the reputation it's been able to kind of cultivate in that period of time. And it started back, like, it started at the beginning.
Right away.
Yeah.
So I think, so overall, and I've read some different things, so this may be an estimate, I'm not sure. But they say there's at least 16 murders, suicides, unexplained events on the property.
Right.
That have been recorded. And not recorded like somebody said it, recorded like legally, like these are events that took place. Mm-hmm. And in the 1930s, there were 6 suicides.
Yeah.
In this building.
Which is just crazy.
Which is a lot. It's a pretty big... it's called a hotel. It was started as a hotel. We'll get to maybe where it's at currently, like what its current status is. It's not really a hotel anymore.
Right.
But there's 700 rooms in it, which is a lot. But it was also a place where people lived.
Yeah.
So it was not necessarily a hotel where people were checking in and out of every single room. People kind of lived there and stayed there. Right. It went downhill. So right after it was built, obviously the Great Depression starts.
Right.
And so the owner, the builder of it, planned on this big, elaborate, LA was up and coming, this whole thing. Did not happen.
No.
And so it really became very run down very quickly. And it's in the part of LA that is known as Skid Row, right. Which also started basically at that time. Yeah. And so it just really became that very quickly. So all of those suicides happened in the 30s. Yeah. I have a couple of choice little stories that stood out to me to mention. Yeah. Mm-hmm, I don't know if you want to share one.
You may have the same one written down. The main one for me, story-wise, is Elisa Lam's story.
And I think that is the most modern, most well-known, how a lot of people came to know of this place.
Yes. Just because it's so strange. I'm always fascinated by things that are... They drive me crazy because they're unsolved, but I'm always fascinated by things that are unsolved and that we don't have an explanation mm-hmm. for. And of course, there are people saying we do know what happened. They figured it out, but we don't actually know that.
So this was in 2013. Yeah. This was I think she was a student in some way, but she was here traveling, kind of attending school.
Yeah, she was
somewhere,
Canadian national,
yes,
I believe, and then she was sort of traveling maybe to do something with school.
Yeah, so, but what ended up happening was that around February of 2013, the residents and people who were staying as guests in the hotel started to notice that their water was brown. And smelled really weird, kind of like sewage, but weird. So after actually quite a while of that, they investigated and finally found out that the reason that was happening was because this young woman's body was inside the water tank on the top of the building.
Yeah.
And it had been there for weeks, decomposing, which is why everyone's water coming out of their faucet was brown and smelled bad.
Oh, it's so rough. And it's honestly overall really sad because someone died, someone young, there's mm-hmm. all the things around it just make it sad. All of this is sad. But it blew up online because there mm-hmm. is video footage of Elisa the night that she passed, and she is sort of getting in and out of the elevators in the building. Mm-hmm. And there's nobody with her. There's nobody visible on screen, I should say. Mm-hmm. We don't know for sure that there wasn't anybody in the vicinity, but there wasn't anybody visible on the cameras immediately in her vicinity.
Right.
And if you haven't seen the footage, you should look it up.
There's a really good documentary about this on Netflix.
Yeah, the Netflix documentary is pretty good.
It shows and goes into detail on different theories, and it shows you the video footage over and over. You can also just look up the video footage.
It's on YouTube,
Yeah, but if you don't know about this, you might want to look into it because it's really weird.
It's very weird. It's very hard to tell exactly what is going on and mm-hmm. what she's sort of experiencing, and a lot of people have theories about what she was going through with her mental health and everything. But mm-hmm. all of this is just conjecture. We don't know. And I have never seen anything like this where, I look at that and automatically go, oh yes, this is exactly what she was experiencing. You're not gonna know.
No, it's very vague and weird, and it's hard to tell if there is someone else with her that's just not on camera, or if she thinks someone's with her who's not, or it's really hard to tell. And obviously, as we have said, the conclusion of this whole night and, this footage leading up to her, apparently what has been ruled an accident by the LAPD, that she went up, climbed up into this water tank, locked herself into it, and couldn't get out again.
Yeah.
And even that, just begs the question, because it's also there wasn't drugs or anything in her toxicology.
No.
So why would a sober, healthy person even do that to begin with?
Exactly.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Even from a physical standpoint, they've kind of tried to explain how she may have gotten the lid and then sort of gotten in, but how she closed it while she's treading water.
Yeah, the documentary goes into the physics of it and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So that was obviously horrible.
Yes.
And recent. And I remember when this all came out and was happening,
same.
and it was so shocking and weird, which is obvious. I want to mention a couple other things about its history before we kind of get fast forward to where it's at now and whether or not we would even consider looking at that place. Because these are just so fascinating too. In 1944, there was a young woman named Dorothy Jean Purcell. She was 19. She was staying there with a man who was 38, which, gotta love the 40s,
Right.
She went into labor. She didn't know she was pregnant, evidently. She gave birth in the hotel room, in the bathroom, and then she threw the baby out the window from the 9th story.
Yep.
And then, this is also amazing, in 1962, a man named George Gianni was walking on the sidewalk outside the hotel when he was struck by a suicide victim who was jumping from the hotel to kill herself.
Right.
And her name was Pauline Otten. And she landed on him and killed him while she was killing herself.
Yep. What is that?
So the famous serial killer Richard Ramirez, who is known as the Night Stalker, lived there during most of his crime spree in the 1980s.
Right.
He committed 13 murders, more assaults and rapes and so forth, obviously very sordid and dark. But apparently he would just dispose of bloody clothing and all kinds of stuff into the trash and the dumpsters there. And nobody ever noticed or questioned why there was bloody clothing in dumpsters and things there. And he did this for months and months and months.
Yeah.
And nobody questioned it because the place was in such condition that nobody noticed or cared that.
And that's the thing about this place too, that it feels like it would draw someone with the energy that he has to it, because other than it's just kind of run down in a rundown part of the city, and by the 1980s would have been pretty bad and well known for being that. It's more than that. There's a darkness there, and there's
another serial killer who lived there, not as well known as him, but the Black Dahlia murder victim, Elizabeth Short, was staying there at the time that she was murdered. Right. There's just so much where it's you can't really say all of this is coincidental.
Yeah, it feels like too much to say that it's a coincidence. It definitely feels and if you've watched anything on it, including that documentary and then some other things, there are people who weigh in on that, and people who have experienced and been there or stayed there or whatever, who talk about the energy that they feel in there and corroborate that. And this includes people who don't typically talk about energy fields or vortexes or any of these things. They're not typically discussing matters like that, but they cannot help but feel the feelings that they do when they're in there.
Yeah, and I think, so fast forwarding up to now, it's gone through a lot over the years, obviously, with all these events, but even just because of these events, ownership and repairs and all kinds of things, rebranding, trying to do all kinds of stuff. So actually where it's at now is It's like super low income, like micro housing that's supposed to help with the homeless situation, unhoused population in LA. So that's what it's at now. You can't stay there as a hotel now.
Yeah.
You can't, you can go drive to the address. Obviously, you can look at it. But I don't think you can just go inside there and walk around.
No.
So it's not really accessible.
Yeah, it's not. There are a few, if you're like interested in what's happening there now and how this is sort of continuing, there are a few people on TikTok who do post about it and who are residents there or who have been residents there recently, and they're sort of recounting their experiences. And that has been crazy to watch that and just see like the continuing sort of things play out that are very similar and reminiscent of stuff in the past. And very fascinating. And
I feel like, and I know it has been called haunted or haunted hotel, and I understand what the word haunted means, obviously. But I don't really believe in this, but I feel like this is more of a cursed location.
Yeah.
That this location, it's not so much that it's haunted, but that it's cursed.
Yeah.
That probably, sad to say, I don't think anything good will probably ever really be there. Even if you could say the way it is now is meant for good and is maybe doing good, like on the street, you know? I don't know. I'm not there. I don't really know. I still feel like there's just something wrong there, and it's never really going to be okay.
I know, which is crazy because, you know, you want to think like, oh, anything can sort of be like repaired or like, you know, cleansed or whatever. But I feel like when you get such deep, dark, just layered, twisted, how do you undo that? How do you even address that? I don't know.
Who is supposed to do that?
No idea.
And how can they do that? And I don't know. I don't know either. So again, like you said at the very beginning, this is very close to where we live. We could drive there right now.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever will, to be honest.
Yeah. We've been around it for sure because we've been in that area of downtown LA. So we've been around it, but
well, my husband works like 5 blocks from this, you know, but not going to it.
Yeah. It's not a place. I don't think it's a place that you would want to go. And people who are there, I don't think that that's really their top choice.
No, and I don't think they want you coming in there doing, this is not a tourist destination.
Right.
Whereas the other places that we're going to talk about, they are tourist destinations, and maybe particularly one of them has also a very sordid, disturbing history,
absolutely.
But has become, sort of an attraction. This place is not an attraction. It's known about, and people do want to visit it and are curious about it, but it's not an attraction, I would say.
No, because it doesn't really feel like there's much to learn from experiencing it. And I'm a very firm believer in things like that, and Jackie knows this. I'm especially strong about like boundaries in this way, where I'm not doing things or engaging in things like just out of pure curiosity or, you know, just to see where I can like set the limit. I'm not trying to push that. I'm never trying to do that. Maybe I err a little bit too much on the side of caution, but I'd rather be that way than the other way, because I think sometimes we think that we can handle things and we think we understand them, and a healthy dose of understanding that you do not understand all the powers at play and the energies that exist, and that certainly, yes, you are powerful in your own right, does not mean that you should just go be interacting with a bunch of things that you may really struggle with if you do. And I don't want to do that.
Yeah, no, I think so. This is a very interesting place, a very weird place, close by. Don't think I want to go. So.
Yeah.
But unless there's more to say about it, I think we can move on, because the next place, totally different vibe.
Yes.
Way better vibe. And I think that's why I wanted to start with talking about the hotel, is because it's like the worst kind of what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Although the New Orleans location has a really bad history as well.
Does, yeah.
But anyways, we'll get to it. Our next location is Sleepy Hollow in New York.
Yes.
So
yes,
very
yes,
different, like I said. Sleepy Hollow is a whole village. It's a whole town, basically. Yeah. It's not just one building, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also called Tarrytown in upstate New York. Yeah. Other than, I mean, we're going to go into, you know, the haunted aspects of it and everything. That's what the whole point of this is. But other than that, it just looks like such an idyllic, beautiful place to visit.
Totally.
Everything I've seen about it, I'm just like dying. Like, it's so cute, and especially in the fall, it looks so perfect.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. So obviously, if you can't tell, this was the setting for the legend of Sleepy Hollow, which is probably one of the most famous, like, spooky tales, written by Washington Irving in 1820. So it's a long time ago, more than 200 years ago.
Yes.
He is also buried there. And so, you know, that's kind of a nice historical aspect. And the legend of Sleepy Hollow is, you know, the Headless Horseman and the whole things. And there's several movies made of it. You know, you could watch them, you could read the story. But that's kind of like where I think all of this comes from, is they've really taken advantage of that association and kind of made their little town like a little spooky destination.
I know, and it's such a fun, I love things that are based on a legend. There's something so fun, like it's, like you said, it's such a different energy, different vibe. It's not...
Yeah, this thing didn't actually happen there.
Right.
There was not some psychopath who actually was doing this thing. It's a story.
Exactly, it's a story.
Yeah.
And that makes it, there's like a magical, I don't know, it's different. It just has a different feel. I love a legend, and there are multiple legends in this area. I think the
That's
Headless
true too.
Horseman's like the main one, and I think it's the one that people are the most fascinated by, because how could you not be fascinated by a headless rider on a horse? Like, that's so cool. It's very cool. But yes, I think that's what gives it its vibe, is like it's steeped in this lore. And when Washington Irving wrote the short story, it had already been a storied legend that was passed around in the Dutch colony forever. It's not like he made it up. So that's even cooler, because the story was written so long ago, but the legend precedes that even more so. And so, you know, I know that you can just like feel those stories and those legends when you're there. I haven't been there yet, but...
Yeah, and a lot of the locations are still there.
Yes.
Like, they're, you know... It's a historic town.
Yes.
So it's like whatever, like there's like a church and like a house, all these different locations.
Right.
And they're like really still there. And I think that's cool. And it's a cool blending of like fact and fiction.
Definitely.
You know, in a lot of ways.
Yes. And I like the playing with that and, you know, sort of embracing the idea that like, this is what we're known for, and this is, and, you know, we're going to go along with this as a story. I love that. And it seems like every business, every location, they all really buy into this. And so I like that
and
too.
I think it's very much like Salem in that way.
Yes.
Where it's like you go there and basically everybody is like, yes, this is Witch Town, welcome. You know?
Yes.
It's like nobody's there like trying to be like against it. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
they're embracing it across the board.
Yeah.
So I looked at their calendar of events.
Oh, how cute.
On their like, you know, historical society, whatever, you know, visit sleepyhollow.com or whatever it was. There are so many things that are so adorable.
I know.
And they go on all month. It's not just on Halloween or like the days leading up to Halloween.
Sure.
It's like when you look it up, it shows you today. So today, there was like 9-10 events. So, okay, I'm just going to say some of these. They have a great jack-o'-lantern blaze.
Okay, that's adorable.
I'm not even sure what that is. I think they just like turn on a bunch of jack-o'-lanterns and like light them, and then you like, I don't know.
That's incredible.
I didn't even look into what it meant, but I'm like, that's amazing.
I love it.
They do nighttime lantern cemetery tours.
Come on.
They do readings and performances of the Legend of Sleepy Hollow,
Which is amazing.
Amazing. They have ghost tours, like of the town, of course.
course.
On Halloween, they have a Halloween parade.
Adorable.
And then there's this house called the Octagon House, which is like literally a house shaped like an octagon and this big dome on the top, and it's kind of Victorian and pink. There's tours of that. There's tours of a couple other mansions that are there, and like the Irving home and all this stuff.
Sure.
But this is the one that I have to just, okay. There is a stand-up paddleboard Witches of Sleepy Hollow festival. And I saw the photos, and what this is it's people stand-up paddleboarding dressed as witches.
Oh my God.
And they have brooms and everything.
That's
like, they're paddles.
amazing. Oh my. Okay.
What is this world?
I don't know. But imagine
and it's
living
called
there.
Witches of Sleep, Stand-Up Paddleboarding Witches of Sleepy Hollow Festival.
That's amazing.
That was taking place today.
That's
amazing.
Absolutely incredible.
I know.
I can't even imagine living in a place you would feel like you were living in Halloween Town.
I know.
That's crazy.
Just the best. So anyway, there was more, but there's like farmers market. There's like
there's
so
a
much
ton
more.
of things.
But those were the things that I just looked at the little calendar of events, and those were all literally happening today.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I was saying. Like, not only the haunted things, and there's so many. If you look up sort of the ghosts and spirits that they say haunt these locations.
Yes.
There's too many to even list them out.
Yes.
It's just this prolific list of, Washington Irving's on there. But there's all kinds of different ones, and each one has such a cool, unique story. Like, they really do. Like, one is like a lady who ate too many green apples and she, like, died.
Amazing.
I know. It's like things like that.
I mean, R.I.P., but
R.I.P. But you know what I'm saying? That's like a little sanitized. It's not...
Well, and it's also like... Is that even true? It's like a tall tale.
Exactly. We don't know. Like, we don't know what's true.
But maybe
it
is true.
But maybe it is true. And I think that's what
I love it.
is so charming. And the way that you mentioned everything there, that is what's so charming about it overall, is that, I'm sure there's bad things. There's bad things that have happened everywhere and throughout history and whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But the deep aspects behind it are not that. Because, like, even Salem, like, there's, like, deep, just awful, traumatic, horrible history, which they acknowledge. But it's like this decision to move forward and, like, keep the spirit of what they like, but also address those things head on. It's a different thing. When you're going there, you are kind of confronting that, and then sort of, but Sleepy Hollow doesn't feel like you have to really do that.
No, because it's kind of based more on, like, the legend and, like, this kind of tall tale kind of concept. It's not based on, like, an historical event that was horrific that took place there.
Exactly.
Even though, there's things that happen everywhere. But, of course. So that just sounds wonderful and beautiful and amazing. And it's the East Coast in the fall and the foliage, just the whole thing.
Unmatched.
I know. So, okay, that is one that I would go to.
Yes.
And maybe we will go to.
And if you live there or you run a place there, invite us to come.
Yeah, or if you've just been there, tell us how it was.
It's nice.
Okay. What is our third location?
It is the La Laurie Mansion in New Orleans, Louisiana, USA.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just in case. So this is one that I feel kind of combines some stuff that we've talked about.
Yeah.
It is much more historical, like, longer ago in the past. But really, really horrifying things happened at this location.
Yes.
And through the years, it changed, and we'll go into that slightly, but, and still horrible things kept happening. Yeah. And the way that it is now, it really is a destination attraction. It's known as, like, the most haunted house in New Orleans, which I think is a pretty...
I was going to say, that's a pretty high title to have achieved in a city like New Orleans, because it is just steeped in that. So and this isn't like a title that other people have bestowed. This is like what local people say. That's what
that's what it's come to be known as.
Like the haunted house. They just say that and they know.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of people won't use that La Laurie name. They don't want to say the name, so they just call it the haunted house.
Yeah. Which I can totally see.
So there is a lot of sort of controversy, I would say, around this location as well, because of the nature of some of the horrific things that took place there. Yeah. So we will just describe those in general so that you understand what we're talking about here. The house is named for this woman. She had, a different name at birth because she had a married name, but her name ended up, it was Delphine La Laurie, right? Yeah. So she was also called the cruel mistress of the haunted house. Jesus. That's what she came to be known as.
Yeah.
She had 3 husbands. The first 2 died. Which, okay, this was happening in, like, the 1830s, so people died a lot. Yeah. I understand that. But
Strange.
Still.
Strange.
The last husband, she had a third husband, was like 20 years younger. He was a doctor. He's actually the LaLaurie last name.
Yeah.
And tried to not be married to her anymore.
Yeah.
And she like went mad, apparently. Although she already had a history of, and this is where the really horrific and controversial crimes comes in, of torturing, starving, and beating the slaves that she owned. This is obviously a hideous part of American history in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
That humans were
Disgusting.
owned and mistreated. But she did this to the level that, I mean, slavery was a thing still. It was legal and all that. When people found out what she was doing, they were angered and shocked at what she was doing.
Exactly. Like, to be to the point where you're even angered and shocked over enslaved persons that you don't even really feel deserve the same rights as you.
Right.
And yet, this behavior is making you inclined to be shocked by it. That's pretty bad. I mean, it's all shocking to us as a modern audience, but this is what we're saying. If you put it in context, that has to be just absolutely insane.
It was so bad that at the time, they were like, whoa, this is bad.
Yeah, like, what are you doing?
You
This is
shouldn't
not what
be
we
doing
do.
this
Right.
to these people. I know. So there was really weird, and and I don't even want to get into like some of the details that I was reading about, and I didn't read too much because I also just didn't want to know.
Same.
But it's like, just to say, in the realm of, like I said, those words, torture, starvation, beating, even kind of weird like evidence of like almost like medical experimentation on some of the bodies that were deceased. She also, like, when people died, left them there just to rot. Would bury them in the yard, not report to the families of the people that had died that they were dead, just anyways, awful. So this is really the reason that this place is haunted. And it's thought to be like the souls of those enslaved people who continue to haunt the location. So after that all happened, it turned into apartments. Still in the 1800s we're talking about. And there were still weird things that happened there in the apartments.
People dying, people, mysteriously disappearing, all kinds of things.
Like even murders took place in the hotel or the apartments. And then it became a school. It was an all-girls African-American parochial school.
Isn't that wild?
And so these poor little girls had to go to this school. And they're not sure that the little girls were told the story of the house.
Of the cruel mistress or whatever.
However, the little girls would often come to their teachers or whatever, like complaining and having bruises. And saying that there was a lady who beat them. And they never could find out who the lady was.
They would always say it was that lady or that woman.
Yes. And it was never, like, all the teachers and whoever, it wasn't, it wasn't them.
Right.
Unless it was one of them and they were using like a ghost story to cover up, which is still sick.
Still sick, and definitely happened for sure, like in places, so that wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility.
But that's still a sick and twisted thing to happen at this location.
It just adds to,
Yes. So, again, like we're saying, super sordid, obviously disturbing past. But it is currently an attraction. It's a destination. Ghost tours and things, tell the whole story or parts of the story. It's, you can go on tours and all these things. So, again, it's like, I don't know how to feel about some of that.
I know. I feel like if you go in... So I feel like a lot of these things have been reevaluated in recent years, and there's a lot more sensitivity to explaining it the way that you're going to get something out of it without exploiting the people or the descendants of people that were involved.
Right.
They do a lot more work to do this correctly. I don't know that for sure here, so don't quote me saying that happens here. But I have experienced that. I did the Jack the Ripper tour a long time, years and years ago when I was like young, like a kid, and then recently did it again as an adult. and the tone was completely different. And our tour guide was a woman, and she was incredible, and the amount that she had researched into it and the way she sort of spoke about the crimes was with a whole different lens. And it was something where it was like edifying, and it was something that was like worth doing with the paranormal aspect to it. And I would hope that there would be a same vibe here.
That could, like, to your point, that would actually honor the victims of these situations and not just sensationalize or glorify the committer or the fact that these acts were committed.
Exactly. That's exactly the vibe. And that's what I have experienced, so I would hope that, that would translate. Yeah.
I would hope so too. And from what I did read and look up, it did seem, because they talked about the controversy of this being an attraction in their town. Anyways, so my hope would also be that. I also just want to say this person and location were also featured on American Horror Story season 3, which is Coven. So they didn't actually film the correct house, but the woman who's played by Kathy Bates in the show is definitely based on this Delphine LaLaurie, and she's fantastic. And if you haven't seen American Horror Story, again, check it out. It's a lot of fun. And they do really kind of root in American horror stories, which I think is the point. These are true kind of things that they take as inspiration to, like, obviously embellish and make a whole show that's about whatever it's about, but kind of tying in some of these real things in American history. So
gets you thinking, gets you kind of confronting those ideas, while also the paranormal aspect of it being interesting. So
what's your verdict on this one? Would you go?
I would go. I would probably want to do a little bit more research to make sure that it's what I'm describing, that it's kind of updated, and that if, like, there are tickets charged for it or whatever that it is funneled into something that's really beneficial, that I could get behind. And if that's the case, then absolutely I would support it. We both do want to go to New Orleans in general and really, like, explore a lot. And yes, if I felt like that was something that I felt comfortable with, I would do it.
I agree. I feel the same way. So out of our locations, we have a no, we have a yes, and we have a probably maybe.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Woof. Yeah. There's a lot.
And I think it's good that we're talking about it, because sometimes people just, like, give a list of, like, these are the most haunted places in America. Or you see the TV shows, right, that, like, sort of break them down. And there's all kinds of paranormal shows. Some of them are absolutely ridiculous. Just ridiculous. Where you're like, okay, just go there and, like, scream at ghosts. I'm not going to be doing that. It's just so silly. And, it's just sort of this, like, oh, go here, go here, go here. And there's not a lot of attention paid to, like, well, why? And how much do we actually know about this, and what's been debunked, and what is actually just, like, probably terrible for you to be interacting with. So you do have to kind of think a little bit more deeply about the places that you want to go and why you want to interact with this energy, and if it's good for you or not, or if it's even for you to do, or if that's just adding to more injustice and pain for people and everything. And if that's the case, then you don't need to do that. You can go to Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah, exactly.
And just, I don't know.
Yeah, pretend like you're in, a novel or whatever, you know.
From a war that is certainly bad. We're not pro-war, but it was a long time ago.
True. I know. There's nothing
is
sacred
perfect
at all.
What are we going to do? There's nothing perfect. We can't be perfect.
I know.
It's impossible.
We can have apple cider.
We can have apple cider. And just, sometimes you can just do that and not have to confront every world problem that there is, It's impossible.
In fact, I recommend just have some apple cider. That's what I want to do.
Even here, just go do it wherever you are. Just go do it now.
I know. That was fun, though. That was interesting.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll have a talk after this, and maybe one of these or a different one we'll do next year.
Ooh! I'm excited for us.
Me too.
How fun.
Alrighty. Until next time.
Stay witchy, friends.
And stay dumb.